This podcast is made possible by listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's July 25th, 2025. On this day in 1817, the Clarksville City Council voted to destroy the public stocks that were used to punish people who'd broken the law. That didn't last too long, though. The following January, they allocated $25.53 for the county trustee to build a new set of stocks. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. I don't know about you, but I was kind of surprised when I learned that Tennessee communities used stocks back in the early days. They seem kind of medieval, right? Or at the latest, maybe something out of the Salem witch trials era of Puritan New England. Well, first of all, the stocks aren't exactly what you're probably picturing in your mind. The wooden device where people stuck their head and hands through holes and stood throughout their punishment was actually called a pillory. Stocks were like that, but for the feet. So the person being punished could sit down for the duration and perhaps have a little bit of a chance to dodge with their upper body if someone threw stuff at them. In the early days of our state, that was the norm for dealing with lawbreakers. It seems to have largely been a money issue. Stocks were a one-time investment. Build a solid set, and sentences could be carried out without any extra expenditure. Once the person was incapacitated, because the stocks were in public places with lots of foot traffic, nobody had to stand guard. Everyone would be able to see if someone got out. When you look at records around the establishment of jails, you tend to see officials being pretty cautious about what a huge leveling up of resources they were committing to, building an entire building that needed to be maintained and hiring someone to be there around the clock. It was a really big step for what were, at the time, fairly small communities that did not have fully formed mechanisms for taxing residents yet. So that's a big part of why Nashville's first jail wasn't established until the city was more than 3 decades old. But the end of the use of stocks and pillories wasn't just a matter of communities growing big enough to have the resources to do something else. Public and legal opinion shifted. Those practices became seen as cruel and dehumanizing in a way that did not line up very well with American ideals or the Constitution. That kind of evolution in thinking is laced throughout the timeline of criminal justice in Tennessee and in the nation as a whole, as are many, many instances of officials being slow to change or adapt to new mindsets. It's an awful lot more convenient to keep doing things the same way or with a one-size-fits-all approach. A man named Byron Black is scheduled for execution in Tennessee on August 5th, and his case is a prime example of the kinds of conversations that evolution in thinking has brought about in recent years. WPLN's health reporter Catherine Sweeney has been covering this story pretty closely, which might at first glance seem a little strange. Isn't this a natural fit for the criminal justice beat? Yes, it is. But when an execution comes into play, so does the person's mental health and physical condition. And so much of the current debate over how executions are carried out and the question of when a punishment crosses over into cruelty, all of those ideas are caught up in how the criminal justice processes bump up against the workings of the human body or the ability of a person to understand what's going on. In Byron Black's case, his attorneys attempted to argue that he could not legally be put to death because he has limited mental capacity. They point to diagnoses that say he's intellectually disabled, and they also say he shows signs of dementia. Not too long ago, that wouldn't have really mattered, but the laws changed. Now people who are deemed mentally incompetent are not supposed to be executed. That's been deemed too cruel. But deciding whether someone's mental capacity truly crosses that line, it's proved to be a complicated thing to sort out in court. In Tennessee's 2 high-profile cases where it's come up, the state pushed back pretty hard against the idea that either Byron Black or Purvis Payne met the standard to have a death sentence downgraded to something like life in prison. And in Black's case, the judge decided his lawyers didn't adequately make the case that he should be exempt from execution. Now, Black also has a health condition that's brought up arguments that are forcing the system to make a call on how much effort officials have to put forward to avoid a cruelly painful execution. You see, Black has a sophisticated heart implant that's designed to give him an electric jolt if his heart stops beating. It's a defibrillator, essentially the same thing as the paddles you always see them pull out in television emergency room scenes. Only instead of paddles, the device is permanently installed on his heart with sensors to tell it when to do its thing. You can see how this could cause problems in an execution, right? The lethal injection drug works to stop the heart, but the defibrillator is made to fight back and keep a person alive. So potentially there's going to be a horrible cycle of heart stopping, heart starting, heart stopping, heart starting. Who can say how long that would go on? And who can say how much of that the person would feel? The Correction Department protocol for lethal injection does not say anything about handling medical implants. So at first, officials say they didn't plan to do anything about the one on Black's heart. His lawyers asked the court to order TDOC to disable the implant. The state argued they shouldn't have to deviate from their norm. And besides, they said, that severe arrhythmia will knock him out anyway, so he probably won't feel anything. That argument did not fly with the judge, who ordered the state to disable Black's device. But within days of that ruling, the case ended up back in court with the state's attorney saying it will be impossible to comply. They say they reached out to the medical center that implanted the defibrillator, Nashville's General Hospital, and were told they'd have to bring Black to the hospital for the disabling procedure the day before the execution is scheduled. Now, his lawyers say that's not an option because it's way too complicated. Basically, they point out that Black might die without the device, and there's a possibility of a last-minute legal reprieve, so it's not okay to take away his chance at remaining alive. It's all pretty complex, with a lot of moving pieces. But ultimately, it does boil down to that question of where punishment turns into cruelty, and about who we want to be as a society. When do our procedures qualify as serving an appropriate level of justice? And when is it blood on our collective hands? The judge in the case said he'd been losing sleep over trying to get this right, even though he knew whatever he decided would likely be appealed to a higher court. And sure enough, the questions over Byron Black's case have been kicked up, as they should be, because honestly, when the ultimate punishment is on the line, it's only appropriate that as many minds as possible weigh in to try and make sure we get it right. In just a few minutes, an audio postcard of a spirited musical moment. That's coming up after the newscast.
We know that local government isn't the only part of your life.
Like the mayor, I know that city government isn't the only thing you're concerned with.
We are still struggling to find affordable housing.
They're taking over this bus stop.
That's one of the unique challenges with my business.
I'm WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams. I'm working to break down topics like transit, housing, and local government to make sure that when you are thinking about Metro, you're getting the full story. Follow my latest stories at WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Even though Byron Black has an intellectual disability, he's scheduled to be executed in August. WPLN's health reporter Catherine Sweeney tells us disability advocates are calling on Governor Bill Lee to spare the man.
Black was sentenced to death for a 1987 triple homicide. Since then, our collective understanding of intellectual disability has changed. Longtime disability advocate Donna Stefano says assessments used to be based solely on IQ tests, which are now often criticized for being too narrow in scope or otherwise biased. These days, evaluations take into account so-called adaptive behaviors. Basically, whether the person can manage everyday tasks.
The fact that people may not know how to operate a washing machine, may not be able to understand the rules of the game, those kinds of things.
That's why Tennessee updated its laws about the death penalty and people with disabilities in 2021. Under the new law, Byron Black would qualify for a reduced sentence, except there's a hitch. The new law excludes anyone who appealed on their competency ruling. Black's lawyers did that for him in 2004. Zoe Jamail, the policy coordinator for Disability Rights Tennessee, says Governor Bill Lee can fix a mistake made in the courts.
He really has an opportunity to make things right here and to use that commutation power in the very sense that it was intended.
Unless rulings from other lawsuits interfere, Black will undergo lethal injection on August 5th. Catherine Sweeney, WPLN News.
Black also has a sophisticated heart implant, which his lawyers say could shock and revive him throughout his execution. The Tennessee Supreme Court announced yesterday it's considering whether the Department of Corrections must disable the implant. Early analysis of Metro Nashville's new gun theft dashboard shows more than 3 firearms are stolen in the city each day. Most of them are taken from cars. Multiple studies have found that stolen guns are often used in crimes. The Nashville Banner reports the official gun theft figure probably only reflects a subset of the actual number of stolen firearms. That's because Tennessee does not require owners to file a report when a gun is stolen. Safety advocates and local law enforcement encourage gun owners to take steps to make sure their firearms are secure. That includes avoiding keeping them in cars altogether. A bill to make it a misdemeanor to store guns in cars was introduced in the state legislature this year, but it did not advance out of committee. A state-owned industrial site that will soon be home to a massive automobile factory is taking action to protect an important source of drinking water in the Memphis area. The board controlling the West Tennessee megasite is adopting zoning regulations that exceed federal environmental requirements. The Tennessee Lookout reports the rules require businesses, including Ford's Blue Oval City, to show that any hazardous materials used on the site won't end up in the Memphis sand aquifer. By a margin of just 1 vote, the Wilson County Commission voted against rezoning to allow an industrial development in the Gladeville area. Developers had promised to include much-needed flood mitigation measures in their project, but ultimately the argument against increased traffic won the day. Both TriStar and Ascension St. Thomas have gained state approval to build new hospitals in Clarksville. There were hours of debate before the Tennessee Health Facilities Commission decided the fast-growing community needs the additional 100 hospital beds those facilities would create. The Nashville Business Journal reports the only opposition came from administrators of the city's current hospital. Tenova Healthcare Clarksville said its facility has enough beds to meet the community's needs, but that there aren't enough healthcare workers to staff additional facilities. Public media stations around the state are raising money to make up for lost federal funding. But Nashville PBS CEO Becky Magura hasn't given up hope the money can be restored down the road. She says there's a compelling case to be made for funding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, known as the CPB.
There are 6 PBS stations in the state, and we are interconnected by a fiber link on the backbone of rural telephone cooperatives. And CPB made that happen. If we hadn't had CPB, we couldn't have done that.
Those towers send geo-targeted alerts during an emergency if cell phone towers fail. Magura says the state's PBS network also gives every Tennessean live access to all of the state legislature's proceedings. Magura joined This Is Nashville for this week's episode about the impact of public media funding cuts in Middle Tennessee. The clawback hits TV stations harder than radio. WCTE in Cookeville lost 40% of its funding from the reduction, which was approved by Congress last week. Meanwhile, we do have very good news here at Nashville Public Radio, which is that community donations have surpassed the emergency fundraising goal. WPLN News Director Tony Gonzalez reports listeners have given more than $450,000.
It's been an uncertain time for public media everywhere, but a very specific milestone was crossed at about 5 o'clock Wednesday.
And we truly do have breaking news here.
That's music reporter Justin Barney on air with criminal justice reporter Paige Flager, learning that the fundraising goal had been met.
We did it.
You did it. We did it. We have $400,000 have come through in the past 3 days. It is absolutely incredible. An unbelievable show of support for the community, a gathering of hands, a lifting up of public radio. It is truly, I didn't think it would happen.
The emotions got to them, and probably a lot of people who were listening live.
Every day we walk into an empty room and an open microphone and hope that other people are listening on the end.
Aw, buddy.
And y'all are. So thank you.
Yeah, you have really showed up and showed out for us here at WPLN. If Justin and I could give you all little forehead kisses, we would give them to all of you who have donated.
This emergency funding fills a gap for the current fiscal year. Still unknown are how much other broadcast costs will increase and how public media outlets will deal with the lack of federal funds in future years. Nashville Public Radio brought in more than 2,000 donations, including from 500 new contributors. And of course, some 600 tote bags as thank you gifts will soon be in the mail. Those read, Power to the Public, Radio for the People. Tony Gonzalez, WPLN News.
And speaking on behalf of the entire WPLN newsroom and all of Nashville Public Radio, may I just say thank you. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. With WPLN News in Nashville, I'm Nina Cardona, and this is Big Freedia.
Release your wiggle! Release your wiggle!
That's the Big Freedia the world knows, the New Orleans rapper who makes everyone want to release their wiggle. But when Freedia played Nashville Pride, she also showed her sanctified side. Senior music writer Julie Hite captured this audio postcard of what it was like for Freedia's fans, fellow performers, and LGBTQ guest choir Nashville in Harmony to catch the spirit of her new gospel material.
It's my full circle moment just to be able to have a choir, behind me, directing the choir. It feels like I'm a young kid again. I'm going back to choir rehearsal and getting ready for Sunday service.
I'm Wesley King. I am the artistic director of Nashville in Harmony. Her team was wanting to do this collaboration with LGBTQ choirs across the country. It's funny because Nashville in Harmony is a secular group. We actually intentionally don't do anything that's religious. And I think the majority of our folks know Freedia from her other work, and so I think this was a big moment. The music, a lot of people in the group, they were like, this is the first time that I've been really moved by gospel music in a long time.
Oh, Father, holy water, sisters and brothers, love one another. Screaming and shouting, there's something about the love that we get as we fall through our knees. Lord, please.
Yeah, it's hardcore gospel. I mean, really. The mass choir vocal stylings, the very overt lyrics, it's unapologetic. My name is JT Landry. I'm a tenor 1, and I've been involved with the group for 2 years. A lot of us in this choir have been told our whole lives that we should be ashamed of who we are. God doesn't love us. We don't belong in the church. And Big Freedia is saying, no, that's not true at all.
My name is Albany Varner Williams. I've been watching Big Freedia since I was in high school, and I remember when she first got her television show, and I watched it, and I had my mom watching it. My mom's a boomer, so she kind of grew up with a certain scope of things, but that really opened the door to have certain discussions and be a lot more, I think, accepting of other people. And I think gospel music can speak to anybody. You don't even necessarily have to be Christian or from the church. Gospel music is inspirational music, and I think that through her gospel music, she's going to inspire other people.
Jiger Allen, Jiger. I'm not a big fan of gospel, but some stuff I can get jiggy with. So if you put gospel with Big Freedia, I think that it'd be a good, collab in the sense of genres.
Right now we pray for each and every person in this circle. Let us all have an amazing show on today, oh God. God, give Freedia supernatural strength in the name of Jesus from the top of her head to the sole of her feet. God, touch each and every dancer, touch each and every singer.
Y'all, please make the noise. You already know who this is. This is Big Freedia! And so it has been on my heart that I put out my gospel album. And this gospel album is for us. It's for people who are LGBTQ and who love God.
My name is Liz DeWeese, and I have been singing with Nashville in Harmony since the fall of 2023.
We don't need a preacher to go to church. We don't need a deacon to hear the word.
So the song Church says we don't need a preacher to go to church. We don't need a deacon to hear the word. And it's so right. For me, it is a picture of folks who bring with them a very deep understanding of who God is to them, while an institution has said, we reject you.
Lord, please. Welcome to the Big Freedia Revival, where everybody is welcome here.
In a time when leadership and government and culture are all making strong statements about where the dividing lines are, and you're either this or you're that, and you can't be anything in between, and if you're not this, then you're not with us. Community is the way that we stay safe in this time. It's the way that we remember our joy and our hope in this time. And so I really feel like, yes, Big Freedia is performing in the South, gospel music at Pride, bringing together all of these layers of ways in which community must touch each other.
That audio postcard was produced by Nashville Public Radio's senior music writer, Julie Height. Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up next week.